Hey, you should try it.
Can we turn them up a touch?
Ray, I have two speakers. Can you hear me?
I can. This might be a really good meeting if you guys can't hear me.
Okay, so the recording is in progress, as you just heard, and the live stream is up. So it's showtime.
Excellent. I'm going to call this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency to order on June 14th, 2022. It is 6:50. I will, 6:50. No use repeating myself. The meeting includes participants in person as well as by Zoom video and is being recorded and live streamed. There will be opportunity for the public to provide testimony if you are signed up during citizen testimony and again during the public hearing. Roll call, Sammy?
So we have directors tonight: Marcus Alexander, Nancy Bell, Kyle Blaine, John Fox, John Lehman, Patricia McConnell, and Ray Smith.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Sammy. Is there anyone signed up to provide citizen testimony?
There is not.
Thank you. Business items, we have the minutes of the February 8th, 2022 Urban Renewal Agency. Are there any requests for changes or edits to the draft minutes from the February 8th, 2022 URA meeting? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Accept the February 8th URA minutes as presented.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Bell and a second by Councilor Fox to approve the consent agenda for the Urban Renewal Agency, which consists of the minutes of the February 8th, 2022 Urban Renewal Agency. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Ray, can I get your vote for the record, please, for the URA?
Well, I'm using both hands. It's hard to raise. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Financial update for the Urban Renewal Agency. It's information only. If there are any questions, now's the time to ask Tim. Any questions for Tim?
Question.
Councilor Bell.
Any feedback from, I believe this was for the URA, from the county on the change in assessment on properties? No. Okay. Thank you. I assumed not, but that's always dangerous.
It's gonna be a long conversation.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for this item? Moving on. We have a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at 6:54 on a resolution 2022-01-U. A resolution adopting the agency budget for fiscal year 22 to 23 and creating expenditure appropriations. Staff report from Tim.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This resolution is to passed the budget that was approved by our budget committee, our URA budget committee. We have a list of our budget and the appropriations for it. I guess I'd ask if there's any questions. It's pretty simple. We have talked about the tax issue. It's also because of the tax issue, we're reducing the transfer that helps us with our sewer fund. Outside of that, do we have any questions?
No questions for
Yeah, I
Tim?
do.
Oh,
Sorry.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Counselor.
I had asked in the last meeting that I saw you in, if you knew the comparison of 2020 to now as far as budget and data. Get any information on that? Because you said you would provide it.
So, can you explain? Sorry, can you explain, please?
But the last, I think it was the last meeting we talked about the budget, right? I had asked in what it looked like in comparison to 2020, and you weren't really sure. I was kind of looking for something on that.
Just the budget overall?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, the biggest, everything's pretty consistent outside of the tax issue, and that tax issue kind of has crippled what we use it for a bit. But outside of that, taxes were the only thing that really was really consistently different. But outside of that, it's pretty much the same.
Thank you. Wouldn't the staff raises be a little different?
The what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the city for sure.
In your spreadsheet, it should show 2020. You can look back.
I did. I was just.
Yeah, page 29. I believe it's 29 in this packet has the historical data, and I looked at that, and it's like I say, it's very consistent outside of the tax issue. Going the wrong way for us, which is not good, but we'll certainly keep tagging into that and let you guys know what we find out.
any other questions for Tim? Sammy, is there anyone registered or signed up to speak?
There's not.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:57. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the budget for the Urban Renewal Agency.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-1-U, a resolution adopting the agency budget for fiscal year 2022-23 and creating expenditure appropriations.
Thank you, and I'm going to second that because I rarely get to do that. I'm a voting director on the Urban Renewal Agency. Okay, we have a motion by Director McConnell and a second by Director Smith to adopt Resolution 2021-2022-01-U, a resolution adopting the agency budget for the fiscal year 2022-2023 and creating expenditure appropriations. All those in favor, please raise your hand. You get me, Sammy?
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will adjourn the URA meeting at 6:58. We have another minute or so before I can start the council meeting. Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I will now call the meeting of the June 14th, 2022 City Council meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The meeting includes participants in person as well as by Zoom video. There is an opportunity for public to provide the testimony if you are signed up during the citizen testimony period, and again during the public hearings. Councilor Bell, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? The United States of America. Thank you, Councilor Bell. Roll call, Sammy.
Now we have Mayor Smith,
Here.
Counselor Alexander, Counselor Bell, Counselor Blaine, Counselor Fox, Counselor Lyman, and Counselor McConnell. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Mayor's comments. Once again, I regret that I cannot be there in person. I did everything possible trying to be there. I would much rather be face to face with our counselors and our citizens than doing a Zoom meeting. But it just wasn't going to happen. I'll just give you a brief that I have some issues with my GI tract, and they are medicating me and switching medications, trying to figure it out, and we haven't figured it out yet. So I'm doing pretty good otherwise, but just unable to make the meeting. So I appreciate your patience. I look forward to getting back into the council chamber and working face to face with everyone. In the meantime, I accept all prayers and positive thoughts. So thank you very much. Agenda review, Sammy?
So in your red packets tonight, you guys will have an additional staff report for a Roberts Road contract with Wildish Construction. The staff report will be presented by Public Works Director Brian Harmon, and it will come underneath the council action items as an agenda item 9.5.
Thank you, Sammy. Do we have any citizen testimony at this time?
We do not.
All right. All these action items, everybody got scared. So I get to skip a whole bunch of script here. Consent agenda. Councilors may remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion by requesting such action prior to consideration. The consent agenda consists of the minutes of the April 26, 2022 City Council work session and the minutes of the May 10th, 2022 City Council. Are there any requests to move these items from the consent agenda? Hearing none. Does any counselor wish to remove? No. No. Are there any requests for changes or additions to the consent agenda? I do have one item. On page 2 of 4 of the work session, it refers to Councillor Fox as Mr. Fox. This is the largest paragraph, which is in the middle of the page. I think it's second sentence. And I have no others. I'll once again call for anything from counselors for additions or changes. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
To accept the consent agenda as presented.
Counselor Blaine has a motion. Counselor Lehman, second. Okay, the vote is on a motion by Counselor Blaine and a second by Counselor Lehman to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Looks unanimous. Thank you. Special guest, Park Tree quarterly report to council. Do we have our guest available?
Yes, go ahead and come on up here.
I'd like to welcome Tom Beatty, who is the vice chair and a wonderful asset to our Parks and Tree Committee. Thank you for your work, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packets, everybody should have the quarterly report for the parks. We've emphasized our work plan goals, and I think you probably would read on down through what's going on. We've managed as a volunteer group to get our hands into all 6 of the parks and public outdoor spaces this year, and we've had great success in tree planting, including at Trails End, where we've enhanced the environment, we hope, down there by planting native trees and shrubs. We also have done work around the Nora Pfeiffer Park, around the Veterans Memorial statue. And that is going to be an ongoing project there. We like to, we do have a plan, a design on record to be put into place if we can I'm losing my thought here, nervous, for the Veterans Memorial, a rose garden, and we need to go forward with funding for that. We're also, hoping that the grants can all be come through for us in the at the Pavilion Park, and for the new urban forest and fountains and everything else to enhance those parks. So we probably have some long-term goals, or we would hope that we can maybe work to get a volunteer coordinator on staff. We're still trying to figure out the plans for all that, and hopefully we'll have something by the next time to put for the council. Also, as soon as tomorrow, we will be meeting at Covert Creek to discuss the future park there and how we think it might need to look. We still need to figure out the demographics of the community, as far as, will it be youth? If so, how old will it be? We expect that, so we can design the best park, a multi-purpose park. I think it should be for the residents over there in that neighborhood. So the other news is that the pickleball court, which will be Nora Pfeiffer, that will be over top of the basketball court, the existing basketball court. We've had a lot of citizen inquiries into putting in a pickleball court. It's a very popular sport, and so we're moving forward that. I believe that Brian has gotten some information on resurfacing the basketball court, and so hopefully we'll see that happening within the next few months or so. And otherwise, Johnny Diamond, we're rehabbing the turf down there. There was some problems doing construction and with soil compaction, and hopefully we're getting that resolved through coring the soil surface and then top dressing with sand and then reseeding. So hopefully we'll have that cleaned up and looking better. So, anybody have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned an urban forest. Where will that be located?
Well, that's kind of our term for the planting that we're hoping will be between the building there in the south end of Pavilion Park over to the street on the southwest side, so that area will be closed off so that park goers, when they're in there enjoying the park, that the noise and all the traffic coming from Pearl and up Willamette Street will be blocked off.
Cool.
It was cool.
I believe we saw a proposal of that.
Yes.
Of the design.
There are
That
some.
was great.
Uh-huh.
My other question, I had two questions. The pickleball
Pickleball.
court. Will that eliminate the basketball court or?
No, it will not eliminate the basketball court. The basketball can be played equally well on the court surface as with pickleball, and the net can be removed. The pickleball net, that is, can be removed, and basketball can be done. Now, the thing is that basketball and pickleball could not be played at the same time there. So we don't know how that's going to, if there's going to be headbutting there in the future or not. We'll have to see. It's too early to know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank-
please thank the whole committee for all of the work that they've done. The parks look just terrific.
Okay, thank you. I
And
will.
we do appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. They really do some incredible work. They have a lot of knowledge. Tom has a lot of experience with trees and the natural habitat areas. And we're just lucky you look at every member of our Parks Committee, they've got some expertise in some field that just helps us have more knowledge on making some beautiful parks. And it shows. Any other guests?
No, there's not.
Thank you. Okay. I will now open the public hearing at 7:13 on resolution 2022-12, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. Staff report from Tim.
Good evening.
Weather report.
What's that?
Weather report.
Yes. So the resolution sitting in front of you is required by state law for us to pass it if we want to accept state shared revenues. If we don't pass it, we don't accept state shared revenues. Any questions on the resolution? This is from the budget committee, the approved budget committee meeting on May 31st. The same document. Like I say, we're required to do this every year to receive the revenues. Any questions?
Sammy, is there anyone signed up to speak on this?
There is not.
I will close this public hearing at 7:14 and entertain a motion.
Resolution 2022-12, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. Second.
I'm sorry, folks, but I think my computer is.
So we had John Fox, moved by John Fox. Kyle Blaine was second.
Here we go. Screens keep popping up in front of you guys. So I have a motion by Fox. Do I have a second?
Second,
I blame.
I'll blame.
Thank you. Okay, there's a vote for a motion made by Councillor Fox and a second by Councillor Blaine to adopt Resolution 2022-12, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I can't see Sammy, so you call it.
So that passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay. Resolution 2022-13, a resolution declaring the city's certification of eligibility for state shared revenues. Tim?
Yes, so this resolution is somewhat related to the previous one. And what this is saying is that we meet the qualifications for us to actually receive the state revenues. There's a list in the background piece here, and we provide all of those services with the exception of fire service. So we have to pass this as well, stating that we are actually eligible to receive the state share revenues.
Approve resolution 2022-13A, a resolution declaring the city's certification of eligibility for state shared revenues.
Second.
I believe by voice that was Lehman and Alexander. There's a motion by Councillor Lehman and a second by Councillor Alexander to adopt Resolution 2022-13, a resolution declaring the city's certification of eligibility for state shared revenues. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you. Sammy, could you switch to the cameras? Thank you. Resolution 2022-14, a resolution adopting the salary and classification schedule for the fiscal year 2022-23. Staff report from Tim Gaines.
Yeah, so what you have in front of you is our salary schedule that was approved by Budget Committee on May 31st of this year. It does include some information about the salary survey we had that was implemented in, I believe it was the first paycheck in October. So there were some significant increases in our salary to staff. And it also includes a 4% COLA. Any particular questions on this resolution? There's a salary scale attached as well, if you have questions on that specifically.
Question. I may be very naive on this, but the assistant city administrator, I'm not familiar who that is.
We don't have that position filled right now, but it's still on the scale.
Okay. And can you give us an update on that position? Is it intended to be filled and advertised?
Not at this time. There's several positions on the scale right now that are not being filled at this time.
And have we had an assistant city administrator in the past?
We did for a very short time, about just at 6 months.
And so are there plans to incorporate that into our?
At this time, we are really looking at future, and we're trying to, things are changing rapidly. So we are looking at the future, and we'll be talking about what are the changes that the city needs to think about. And I'm hoping to have a meeting with the council, the mayor and I, to have a meeting with the council in late July to discuss all of that. And have some documentation and some information for you at that time to think about future of the city and positions. And so that is something we're working on. And some recommendations that I would like the council to think of.
I was just kind of maybe under the impression that we have a position where we're training someone to fall into that position if it were necessary.
What's happening with that is we're reevaluating the succession plan and the current resources, which changes as their skills and stuff change. So what's happening is it's starting to turn into a personnel issue. And we have to shy away from personnel issues in public meetings. So the meeting in July is probably going to be a very informative meeting about what the plans are, get your intake on it, and make some decision where we go from there. Because there's a couple of different options, but it's hard to talk about that because we should not be talking about personnel issues in public meetings.
And can you list the other positions that are unfilled?
Sure. We don't have an accountant at this time, but we have left it on the schedule. There's various office positions that can be filled. We can have a very entry level person, and that could happen in any department. So we try to keep them kind of open in the event that a department needed some either temporary, seasonal, or permanent administrative assistance. Our utility billing specialist is open right now, but it will be filled, or else another one of the positions. And the person that's doing that right now will continue to do the utility billing specialist. Let's see, Public Works. We have a seasonal worker right now, but that goes off, that's off and on. And I believe we have someone in that level. At least one person in every level.
So I think I recall we have about 18 employees, and this is a list of approximately 23 or so. So we've got maybe 5 positions that are not filled.
Right.
Any other questions for Tim? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Adopt resolution 2022-14, the fiscal year 2022-23, City of Copeland.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman McConnell and a second by Councilor Lehman to adopt resolution 2022-14, a resolution adopting the salary and classification schedule for fiscal year 2022-23. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Looks like passes unanimously. Thank you, councilors. Okay, public hearing. I'm on the right line here. I will now open the public hearing at 7:24. Resolution 2022-15, a resolution adopting the city's budget for fiscal year 2022-23, creating appropriations, setting the tax, and categorizing the tax. Staff report from Tim.
Yeah, so what we have here is our resolution to appropriate funds. And the total budget appropriations this year is $17,103,837. Our permanent rate is $3.75, 3.7506 per $1,000. And that does not change, as I think most of you know. Any questions? We've attached a budget summary as well as budget detail. So this is what was approved by our budget committee on May 31st of this year.
Questions from councilors? Councilor Lehman.
Percent for the water fund, or percent increase, or was that 3%?
3% and 1.5% for sewer.
And did that pencil out, in your opinion, in terms of covering the anticipated cost, or is that still basically a placeholder?
Really, right now, we have to look at it as a placeholder because we just don't have enough facts to answer that question right now. We will see how it goes, and we probably won't know the true cost or what are the projects that absolutely have to be done until September. But I will be pushing some numbers to give you scenarios, and I'm hoping to get those to you in July. So they will be scenarios. That's the best we can do until we have some facts that you can make decisions on.
Councilors recall, we hired a consultant to do a water master plan study for us so that we would have that information in September. Any other questions from councilors? Thank you, Tim.
You bet.
I'm going to close this hearing at 7. Oh, wait a minute. Is there anyone registered to sign or speak, Sammy?
No.
Thank you. I'm going to close this public hearing at 7:27. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-15, a resolution adopting the budget for fiscal year 2022-23, creating appropriations, setting the tax, imposing the tax, and category.
Second.
Who was the second, please?
Blaine.
Thank you. There's a motion by Councilor Bell and a second by Councilor Blaine to adopt resolution 2022-15, a resolution adopting the city's budget for fiscal year 2022-23, creating appropriations, setting the tax, and categorizing the tax, declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Tim.
Sure. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, resolution 2022-16, approving the amendments to the Lane County Deadly Physical Force Plan. Report from Chief Larson.
Hey, everybody. So before you have resolution 2022-16, a little bit of history. In 2007, the Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 111 that requires the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office to develop a deadly force plan to investigate any use of force by law enforcement in the county. February 12th of 2008, Coburg City Council approved that or adopted that. On March 29th of this year, the Lane County Board of Commissioners made amendments to the plan. And they're listed on page 1 of the presentation. Pursuant to ORS 161-195 to 161-275, amended by section 8 of House Bill 4301. And so those amendments are listed there. And that I'm just asking for, according to the letter from the district attorney's office, for the city council to either approve or not approve the amendments to the plan. So the plan is a multi-agency team. I think it's a couple of state troopers, sheriff's deputies, maybe an EPD officer, and they do an independent investigation on any use of force that we might have. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer them.
Nancy, you'll have to call if you see us.
As to this amendment is really addressing or trying to solve that wasn't there originally.
Yeah, I think they've changed some verbiage where in the section 1, it says objectionably reasonable use of force. So that's new terminology. And then I believe on physical injury to a peace officer or a third person and the use of force was necessary. Those two, I think, are the two changes.
State the first one again.
Objectively reasonable, which is the first paragraph or sentence of section 1 on page 1. Anytime you see something in the news about a Lane County officer using force, a pursuit, a baton, shooting, anything like that, or even shooting at somebody, it's investigated by this team.
So it sounds like there was not a verbal warning given prior to the use of deadly force, and that's a change, or was that part?
I believe that was part of the one prior to. If you're reasonable, if you're able to, you would always want to give a warning. I believe that they've changed the law with some of the law enforcement oversight from the last legislative session. And I believe those are the two big changes in that particular section. And that was as approved by the legislature and the Board of Commissioners.
I have a question on the deadly physical force plan. Are our officers trained now because of these changes, or does the training they have?
Yeah, the training is adequate. It's established by DPSST, and I think in the plan it actually lists the use of force training. Which we did. This machine in the back, we just did or doing a couple hours for each officer on use of force training regarding school incidents. So that's an ongoing issue that we always have is train. I think it's 12 hours every 3-year period. Defensive tactics, tactical shooting, SWAT training, use of force decision-making, which is what this training is. So every time we go to the range, we qualify and then we do training on the use of the weapon and use of force whenever we do the training. So we do that like 3 times a year at least. And then we'll do classrooms, defensive tactics, which is more hands-on physical defensive tactics stuff versus a firearm. So we do all that training every year. We're exceeding whatever DPSST's minimum requirements are. It's 24 hours every 3 years. It's a year. all I have.
Ready for a motion?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-16, the resolution approving the amendments to the Lane County Deadly Force Plan.
Second.
Sammy Camera. There's a motion by Counselor Alexander and a second by Counselor Fox to adopt resolution 2022-16, a resolution approving the minutes of the Lane County Deadly Physical Force Plan. All those in favor, raise your hand. Sammy, call it. I can't see.
So the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, resolution 2022-17, authorizing funding through OTIB, Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank, for street project funding in the amount of $999,500, and approve the city administrator and/or mayor to sign the commitment letter and loan documents to OTIB. Staff report from Ann?
So this is a follow-up to last month, I believe you, or the 2 months ago, you gave us permission to apply for this funding. When I was talking with them about what we would borrow, they really had some recommendations for us, and that was borrow only what you need right now, because the interest rate is very variable, and you might want to get done what you're going to do and then seek other funding in the future when you know what else you need to do. The other piece was that if up to a certain point, staff can approve loans, but if it was over $1 million, then it had to go to their board, and that takes a lot of time. We're hoping to get funding set up so we can get some projects done during our construction season. And I had hoped that this would go faster, but it really did take a very long time for them to give us the approval to move forward. So this resolution is approving us to move forward with OTIB to borrow $999,500. And that we expect will cover the projects that we hope to get done between now and October 31st. The big construction projects, which is Roberts Road and also Mackenzie Street here on either side of Willamette. And so the specifics of the loan are within the packet, and I'm happy to go over those if you didn't get a chance to read them. I don't want to read the packet word for word, but if it's helpful for me to go over some of those, I'm happy to do that. It's a solution. So this is a 2.52% interest at a 10-year bond. Let's see, payments are estimated at $114,000 a year. And again, 10 years. I think a really important piece that I should point out to the council is that this is a full faith and credit bond, which means that we are pledging not just street fund revenues, but the general fund revenues as well, to pay back in the event that the city got in trouble and the street fund could not make this payment. We are pledging that the general fund will make the payment. It's our reality anyway for any of the funds. The general fund is the only place we have to go to for all of our funds. So the revenues that we are pledging is the general fund, our highway tax apportionment that we get from the state, as well as both local and state fuel taxes. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
And stuff be included in that also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry, that was on the next page.
I thought I remembered that. I
They
just
have
had-
listed system development charges as well, but that would probably be a last resort because those are really the state itself puts very, very tight restrictions on what those can be spent on. And debt is one of them. Up to a certain point, we can use some of our system development charges. The percentage wise, I will have to have calculated. So wanted to do that, we would go to a professional and say, please calculate what we can use for debt based on what we have right now.
But it would be courses listed that those would be enough annual to repay that loan.
Yes, ma'am.
So you were saying these funds would be used now until October. Once October is complete and these funds are expended, you make another application?
We can, or at that time, but basically what we do is called a one-stop. And at any given time when we want to borrow money, we will go to, usually we go to Business Oregon and we say the city of Coburg needs money for this. And they will look at what they have to offer us. They'll look at what USDA has to offer us, and then they will look at other opportunities. In this instance, they said, we can make you this loan, but we really do think OTIP could do a better job for you. So we think you should go there. And, but they will set up the meetings. And we did the same thing with the water project. We had a one-stop. So basically we will, as soon as we get going on these projects, Brian and I are already looking at next summer and saying, what are we going to accomplish next summer? And we know that will be that big collector street project. So we'll start looking at, is the funding we have already lined up for the collector street projects enough, or do we need to look for more money? And then we'll start looking for more money if we need it. So we're already actually having those discussions. But for this year, and if we don't spend all of this in this summer, then we can continue to draw down. All of our projects are approved. We're not limited to any one project at the city in utilizing this fund. So if we come in under bid on both of our projects and we have a little left over, we can use it. And we just seek reimbursement.
So is this loan a drawdown as needed?
Yes.
It's not a lump sum transfer?
No, it's a drawdown as needed.
Each project is looked at by the OTIB.
They don't have that requirement like Business Oregon does. Business Oregon, we have to run everything through them before we move forward. This is a little bit less.
We can just
cumbersome.
draw without giving a reason.
We have to match what we told them we were going to spend the money on, and we have to turn in reimbursements. And then when you do those reimbursements, that answers a lot of the questions.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And this also go towards staff time if it's involved with the street project?
Probably engineering staff or other professional contract staff, but probably not city staff.
Because we were talking about using city staff to do the sealants over the cracks. So it would be used for that.
It could be used for the costs associated with that,
Not salary costs.
but not salary costs, no.
Any other questions for Ann?
Seeing any?
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion.
Resolution 2022-17, a resolution authorizing funding through OTIB for street projects funding in the amount of $999,500 and approve the city administrator and or mayor to sign the commitment letter and loan documents to OTIB.
Nice.
I have a motion by Counselor Lehman and a second by Counselor McConnell to adopt Resolution 2022-17, a resolution authorizing funding through the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank for street project funding in the amount of $999,500 and approve the city administrator and/or mayor to sign the commitment letter and loan documents to OTID. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Ann. Okay, we're going to go to the red folder item, which is the 9.5 Roberts Road repaving project. Brian.
You want to do that one first?
Yeah, because I already said it.
I'm glad I brought it up here with me. Good evening, everyone. Construction season is finally upon us, and we're finally getting to see the fruits of everyone's hard work start to pave out. So this came fairly late because the bid opening was last Wednesday. So we kind of had to scramble to get the contract ready for your approval tonight. So that's what is before you. A little bit of background. The Streets Transportation Committee went through the capital list and identified the repaving, reconstruction of Roberts Road as the highest priority to tackle first. So there were three bidders, the three large companies in the local area, Wildish, Knife River, and Riverbend. I almost said Eugene Sand. Wildish came in as the low bid. You guys have any questions?
Just interested in how the other two bids compared to it.
They were all three very comparable. So Wildish was
Gone to that simply because it was the lowest, or did you have other factors as well?
as far as accepting the lowest bid. No, typically we always go with the lowest bid as long as they meet all the requirements in the bid package. So there's several boxes that have to be checked. So as soon as all those boxes are checked, then we can accept their bid. Yes, sir.
How deep are they taking the base down to do the road?
Well, that's a great question. In certain spots of Roberts Road, it's going to go down for a complete base removal and replacement. Some of the asphalt's just going to be a grind out, and we're going to grind out, I think 6 inches at the most, and lay back 6 on top or 7 on top, 7 or 8. It's kind of if you've been down Roberts Road recently, you know that there are some good sections of asphalt and some really poor sections of asphalt.
How did it end up like that?
It's really hard to say. My personal belief is the quality of material that was laid down, and I think it was in the late 80s, I want to say. Anyway, the quality of the asphalt that was laid down was probably not what it should have been.
You got a gold star.
I do not.
Those of you that were here, come on.
Also the fact that a couple hundred trucks a day run over it.
Yes. It's seen some traffic.
So how will traffic be managed during that project? Is it one lane at a time or?
Most likely. So the plan is to work with a contractor, possibly do the night paving. So, construction during the day and pave at night. That'll speed the project along and have the least impact on businesses. There will be impacts to the businesses, but we will work with the business and the contractor to keep traffic flowing. But typically it's one lane at a time or one large section. The paver is only so wide, so they'll probably do four paves, so 2 seams, 3 seams that you'll see.
Because there's really no way to detour.
No, there's not.
So it'd have to be.
That's correct.
The city has already issued a letter to every business on the road to make them aware that this is in the works and it's coming. So we are trying to give them plenty of advance notice.
In our pre-construction meeting, we'll talk with the contractor about, making more contact, and then, right before paving starts or construction starts, we'll do one more. So we like to do at least 3 notifications to businesses.
And I may have missed this, but what's the time frame for the start and finish of that?
So the start is, you guys probably heard me back there squirreling around. I left my readers somewhere. So,
It's right in it's beginning of July.
yes,
And that's why we were rushing to try to get this, because it's gonna take most of the summer, so.
getting used to readers. So substantial completion is October 30th. So we've given them plenty of time to figure out mobilization, other projects they may have already on the books for this summer. So October 30th is substantial completion.
The recommended motion talks about allowing for slight changes to the contract.
Slight might be if they do start to see subgrade failure in certain spots and they have to, over excavate. Or the reason why we're trying to get these.
I think there's a different meaning to that. I'm sorry. In
Oh.
this case, there's a different meaning to this. We just got this contract today and I just finished it today. And I was only able to send it to Ann this afternoon. So there's occasionally when she will say, I want you to rewrite this sentence. Or they might say, I'd like this sentence rewritten, and then I'll send it back to Ann and say, they want this written this way. Is this okay with you? So that's what it's talking about with the legal, is that she hasn't had a chance to read it yet. And she doesn't always, but occasionally she will reword a sentence for me or make a recommendation. So that's why I'm making it clear to you that legal may want to make some slight changes to this contract, and then we'll ship it back to the contractor and make sure that that's okay with them.
And it does say that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brian.
I didn't, when I did the staff report, Ann made some changes, and I thought I caught all the changes, but you obviously made that change too. So that kind of threw me. But sometimes during a project, so that's what this is about. But sometimes in a project, things do come up. The price of asphalt, for one. So we will work with the contractor if something drastic happens between now and the time they start. If, asphalt skyrockets, then we'll have to either scale down the project or work with the contractor on the cost. So that'll come in the form of a change order. Yes, sir.
So Councilor McConnell asked about 40 years ago. Suppose moving in the future, a shoulder starts failing. I keep thinking about the Bertelson Road right off of Beltline, which is a sad disaster because it's a recent road and the shoulders are all, they didn't do it right. What's our recourse? I'm sure it will be fine. Well, there should be a line company, but
So typically what we get is a 1-year warranty period. So if we start seeing failure, we can warranty that. So once substantial completion is done, we'll do a walkthrough with the contractor. We'll mark out any imperfections that we see. We've done that in the new subdivision just recently, and we will identify spots. Now, 40 years from now, I probably won't be on the earth, so it's not going to matter to me. Just kidding. But the way that we have planned the street program out is that the next person up to the plate can take what we've done and move the preventative maintenance programs forward. That, in the case that you were talking about with Burleson, it doesn't always work out in the best interests of the city or the street. So we can only do what we can do to preserve the integrity of the asphalt for, however long the road is there.
I don't know what caused that, whether it was structural or water underneath, but a good result.
Is 1 year a typical?
Yes.
Seems crazy.
It is.
I mean, at least a 5-year would be nice.
Typically what we find with the 3 big companies, Wildish, Delta, Eugene Sand, or Riverbend, they're very good at what they do. They've crafted their skills.
And that's even more reason why I think they'd want to extend their warranty, but okay. With that traffic that goes on that road, that's getting a beating.
Yeah, so 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we will be doing some sort of preventative maintenance program. Some of you may be on the council at that point. I hopefully will still be here a few years from now. But we will do some sort of preventative measure. That doesn't mean that anything has happened to the street. It just means we're trying to prolong the asset.
It's just like anything else. If you want warranty, you're going to pay more for the warranty. And it usually offsets the risk.
Which is why I was bringing it up. I mean, I know we always go for the lowest bid, but I don't buy things on the lowest price for that reason. So I'm wondering maybe why we're buying something at the lower price, but you're saying all companies just get 1 year. So it's the same.
Counselor Alexander, government contracting requires us that we take the lowest bidder unless there's a good reason why we are not. So that's kind
way of
of
doing
our
things.
hands tied a little bit
Definitely.
about which contractor we select.
And that's why there's all those little boxes that have to be checked in the bid package.
And Wildish is a good company. They've been around a long
They-
time.
Didn't they just get cited for not having the environmentals?
Happens to
Yeah,
the best of them.
For all of them.
Oh, it's for all of them? Yeah. It's all wild.
Brian,
So I assume, Brian, there's like 4, 5, 6 different inspections all the way through this process.
Are you referring to the city inspecting? We will have an inspector on site every day of construction.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's various testing that's done all.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So, compaction is a huge, so they have to have a third party do testing of the asphalt. The asphalt has to meet certain parameters. And either branch engineering or myself or somebody in public works will be out there every day monitoring, especially when the paving's happening. We'll be watching what the temperature is of the asphalt coming out of the back of the truck and after it's been laid down. So there's a lot of inspecting going on in paving projects.
The only thing that I see in a lot of paving projects that just surprises me is the pooling of water and how they didn't get the correct grade on some of these projects. Is there going to be a lot of insurance that?
Well,
will be covered?
it's funny you say that. That's the one thing that we just went over with the contractor in the subdivision. We identified 3 different locations where there's some puddling.
Mhm.
Accountability on the part of the businesses on there, specifically the parking business, to to safeguard against speed limit, driving not.
As far as speeding, that's not in my windshield, might be in the police chief's, but, accountability for, maybe a truck not lifting up its support arms and gouging the asphalt. Yes, there are things that we can do if that happens.
Hey, Brian,
Businesses pay the tough now. I think there's some incentive for them to monitor their own activity.
Yes,
They pay large amounts.
yes, sir.
so there's a couple things. These companies all have a reputation that they want to maintain. They've been in business for decades. And so that's one of the things that I feel confident about is these are big, well-organized companies with a reputation they want to maintain. The other point completely away from that is the discussion and the interaction between contractors and our businesses out there. I've been involved in a couple of these projects when I was fire chief, assistant fire chief, and the discussion, they actually kicked us out of the pre-con meeting for repaving Coburg Road North because we had no party to that construction, which runs right across all the bays that all of our emergency vehicles come out of. And then when we finally did get to sit down after raising a big stink, they were pretty much, yeah, we got this. We've done this many, many times. So sure enough, what happens 2 months later is they've torn up both lanes of North Coburg Road North in front of the fire station. No communication to the fire department at all. And I think that needs to be really emphasized, that we want communication with these businesses and stuff so that they know if they need to, pull a pair of combos out of there, they need to know that it's happening and what can we do to get around that while they're doing this work.
Yeah, that's why we try and do the three-legged stool of communication with business owners. We've already paved part of Roberts Road and we've dealt with businesses there. So we're going to take that model and move it right down the road.
Good. Just emphasize that the contractors should be talking with those businesses.
Yeah. And there will be impacts. One of the things that we decided to do
That's
was
a given.
do night paving. So anyway, any more questions?
Hearing none. I hear none, so I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Thomas Street.
Nope.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Roberts Road.
We're getting there. You're almost
I
there.
move to approve the Robert Road repaving project contract between the city of Coburg and Wadish Construction Company and allow for slight changes to the contract as recommended by legal and negotiated with Wadish, not including the bid price.
I second that.
We have a motion by Councillor Lehman and a second by Councillor McConnell to approve the Roberts Road repaving project contract between the city of Coburg and the Wildish Construction Company and allow for slight changes to the contract as recommended by legal and negotiated with Wildish, not including the bid price. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you, councilors. Okay, Brian, I think you have the paperwork for this one. I wished I did.
You want me to just go ahead, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I don't have the heading on this. Is it the Thomas Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
So before you is another contract for construction. This is for the beginning of what will be several water replacement, water main replacement projects. The street is off of Coleman. Towards the end of, it's the furthest street south in town that goes east and west. So Thomas Street, the Thomas Street project was identified to go first because that is the furthest southernmost main line. And what we're planning to do is working our way right through that, through Pearl Street and right up to Mill Street. So the next project you'll see in the form of a contract staff report will be the North Coleman project, and then Dixon Street, and then across Pearl Street on McKenzie and Lincoln, all the way to Mill. So this one is just for that small section. There's just a few houses on Thomas Street. It is an old AC, undersized AC or asbestos concrete pipe. And in the capital water master plan, the water master plan capital list, we've identified several asbestos concrete pipes to be replaced with newer modern pipes. Are there any questions?
One question, and I can't tell you where I was reading this, but there was something in the packet that I read that there was one property owner that might be impacted, that might be an issue.
Yes. So one of the water services that feeds a house that fronts Thomas Street comes off of Maple Street, which is a block over. So it crosses some private property from the water meter and then feeds that house. And what we want to do is eliminate all of those that we can in town. And we've identified this one as the starting point for that. So what we'll do is we'll drop in a service in the front, and the contractor is responsible for decommissioning on Maple Street and tying back into the house.
Anticipate there's going to be controversy about that?
I don't know if controversy is the right word. I don't even know if conflict is the right word, but anytime you can't find a water line and the contractor is involved, it can be cumbersome is probably the best word to use.
Good descriptor. Okay.
So Delta Construction Company was the low bidder, and there were several companies that bid on this project. Delta was, they left a lot of money on the table because they really needed the work. So it benefited the city of Coburg. We do not anticipate any change orders to make up that difference. So that's good. The biggest difference was in their pipe, the pipe price. So good for us. It was a win.
So
I gotta
Yes,
say,
sir.
Brian,
I got one question, Mr.
go
Mayor.
ahead. Go ahead in the council.
So is this saw cutting on the edge of the pavement, or is it in more of the center? So is there 1,700 lineal feet of saw cutting, or is that half that amount? And what's the condition of that current street and the paving needs?
That's again another great question. We are going to be paving back a little bit wider trench. So yes, there'll be a saw cut up one side, and we'll pave back just a little bit more. We decided to evaluate the road surface once we're done with the construction there, and then determine if that's going to need removal of the older asphalt and lay back maybe an overlay or something on that.
So where's this street in your legend of streets in terms of?
It is not, I don't want to misquote anything. I think I probably ought to get back to you on that. But I know it's not on the high priority list. It's a great question though, but we have accounted for wider trench repaving. As much as the water lenders would allow.
We are trying to align these projects, but they're not, it's not gonna work out all the time. There's gonna be times when we're gonna have to patch and then come back and doing our best.
We do, however, have some streets on the north end of town that we have aligned. So there will be repaving of streets when you guys see that contract as well.
Brian, I just wanted to say I was amazed once we put the RFP out. The day it came out, there was 5 contractors out here on the street. There were literally 3 of them parked on the street at the same time reviewing the paperwork for this. It actually surprised me.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of people out there right now looking for projects to put on their books, and this is a good starting point for us to see where we're at bid wise. I was really surprised that Delta came in so low. So we looked at those upper numbers and they were still underneath the engineer's estimate for construction. So looking at holistically at all of the bids from Roberts Road through the Thomas Street, we're looking pretty good. We were trying to compare what was going on to the north of us in Harrisburg in their bid struggles. And I think so far, and just so we're clear, it's the same engineering firm that does Harrisburg that contracts with us. So there's not much difference there. But it seems like they're struggling with their bids, and we're hitting home runs. So
Good for us.
any other questions?
To adopt, or sorry, I move to approve the Thomas Street Waterline Replacement Project contract between the City of Coburg and Delta Construction Company.
Second.
Who was the second, please?
Counselor Fox.
Counselor,
They're fighting over who gets to do this tonight.
Be gentlemen.
I wonder I didn't recognize the voice. Okay, who did the motion?
Motion by Kyle Blaine and seconded by John Fox.
I'm having problems. I'm getting a little skip in when you guys are talking. I'm kind of missing every other word once in a while. Let's see. So I have a motion by Counselor Blaine and a second by Counselor Fox to approve the Thomas Street Waterline Replacement Project contract between the City of Coburg and Delta Construction Company. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, counselors. Budget Committee appointment.
I think we have the.
Should be the Harrisburg IGA for law enforcement services, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, I see it. Annual agreements between No? Okay. Oh. Top of the page. Harrisburg Intergovernmental Agreement for Law Enforcement Service. Chief Larson.
Hey again. So a little bit of
You get to go.
background. Back in September of 2019, the city entered into an IGA agreement with the city of Harrisburg for the police department to provide 25 hours of traffic enforcement in Harrisburg. We renewed the contract, I believe, a year ago. They added up to 10 hours for city ordinance, community engagement, activity. Of that, we're normally doing about 2 to 3 hours a month for the city ordinance enforcement. It's complaint driven like Coburg's. So there's not a whole lot of activity up there on that particular issue. So the city of Harrisburg is very happy with their service. We're looking to expand it an additional 10 hours of traffic enforcement. So the reason why we entered into this agreement to begin with was the police department very seldom, if ever, has an opportunity to bring in any kind of a revenue stream. So the goal was to try this program to bring in some revenue to help with the vehicle fleet. So currently how the fleet is you council approved over a year ago, the purchase of a new patrol vehicle that has been ordered for over 8 months. I reached out to them. They say it's supposed to be the end of June, possibly July, but it hasn't even been built yet. So I don't know when we're going to get the patrol car. In the meantime, as you know, I have a lot of connections. So I worked with Clackamas County Sheriff's Department and got a couple of Dodge Charger donated to us. We've put them in service. As with used vehicles, you have maintenance issues. So one of them has the intake manifold, evidently is one piece. I'm used to Chevy 350, so I don't understand it completely. But evidently it's clogged from underneath and you can't like clean it, you can't repair it, you got to get a new one. So that vehicle we're down to one extra patrol vehicle. That vehicle's been in the shop for almost 3 months. They can't find a part. They can't find a new part. They can't find a used part. So we're just duct tape and baling wire, trying to keep everything together. Hopefully we won't have any kind of vehicle issues. But that's the spirit behind the police department wanting to do the contract with Harrisburg, was to get a little bit of revenue. We try to include everything for you. So there's a recap of the patrol hours in Harrisburg. So 25 hours a month. Of that, originally we had talked about reserves doing the majority of it. So with any volunteer program, you have turnover. So I have 2 reserve police officers, which is a complement to the police department, but I have 2 of them that got picked up by Oregon State Police. I have 1 yesterday got picked up by University of Oregon PD. So it's good to have good reserves, but the double-edged sword is that sometimes you lose some of your good people. I still have 2 or 3 solo reserves that actually are doing part of the patrol in Harrisburg. So of all of the hours last year, full-time employees, including myself with my 3 hours a month, did 196 hours, reserves did 127 hours. That calculation, the police department, and in a recap, looks like we were in the black about $4,500. I think it's a little bit more than that because with the reserves, it's volunteer hours. Even though we have it listed that they're getting paid $19 an hour, they are not. It's part of their volunteer hours to be a reserve. So that's around about 2,400 additional that should be in the black for working the Harrisburg contract. So what we're asking for is for permission for the city administrator and I to work on completing the negotiations with Harrisburg. Anne has also worked on the financial side. Our billable rate back when we started the contract was $51 an hour. To be fiscally responsible, we've bumped that up with all of our costs by about $25 an hour. So the billable rate is going to be at $76.46. And the dollar figures, I think on the recap are at the old rate. So it should be pretty good for the police department. Again, my goal from the inception of this thing is to try to have money for patrol cars, because they get driven, every day. They get driven hard. They might sit there and idle for 2 hours at a traffic crash. Police are just hard on vehicles. When you're buying used vehicles, you have maintenance issues on used vehicles. So the two that we got from Clackamas worked out really well. We were in them about $2,500 total when we were done. My patrol vehicle, we actually bought from the sheriff's department a couple of years ago for $5,000. So if we're able to do the contract with Harrisburg, that should be enough money to get 1 or 2 used ones. Clackamas currently doesn't have anything on rotation, but I think next year they have buying a bunch of new vehicles, so they'll be rotating out some of their older stuff. So we have a really good chance of getting maybe a couple updated cars. The ones that we have are 2011 and 12s. So they're still, 8, 9, 10 years old. So fleet for me is a constant battle of trying to upgrade, update all the time. So this is just a revenue stream, because really police departments don't create revenue. So this was a rare opportunity. And then I'll be glad to answer.
Create service, and that we appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Any questions for the chief?
My question is,
I'll entertain a motion.
spiraling
Nancy has a question.
gas costs,
Yes,
fuel costs,
yes,
maintenance costs.
yeah.
Is there a rider in there that an escalation clause or anything on that?
No, built into the contract, we do have 15 minutes of travel time that we get paid for to Harrisburg. It's kind of split the baby because it's, maybe a little bit more round trip. But as far as fuel costs, no. This year I actually bumped up my fuel budget line in anticipation of some hike in gas, but maybe not this much.
We raised all of our fuel lines this year.
Yeah, hopefully enough.
But the $76 an hour, that calculation wasn't just salary cost, that was.
No, that was in the recap, that listed materials and services and hours. So that should be everything. We tried to calculate everything.
But basically how we do that is we add the materials and services budget and we divide it by the amount of workable hours of the police department. So we know what the full-time available hours are for all full-time employees. But then we look at how many hours are available for reserves as well. We add, so we count all of those hours as the available working hours, and we divide the cost of materials and services to come up with a dollar amount that it costs us to run the police department per hour. So that we add that onto the cost of the staff and charge per hour for the materials and services.
And so kind of how I schedule Harrisburg is I look at their need, right? It's normally commuting time. Normally I can't say we always do, but we try to schedule it when we have 2 officers on here in Coburg. So it's not taking anybody away from Coburg. So normally if Kevin goes up in the morning, then I have Mike here on patrol or vice versa. But that's normally how that's scheduled. So most of it is daytime hours. I think we're addressing all the needs in Coburg. I haven't had any real complaints lately as far as speeders or anything. We are doing the crosswalk sting from that ODOT grant. That should be happening in the next 2 weeks. Because they have a time window when you do like the UI enforcement, seatbelt. So the crosswalk, I think, is coming up 2 weeks from now. And that'll be, I think I put in an article in the newsletter tomorrow. And then we have to watch a training video from ODOT on how to be the chicken crossing the road to make sure that they're safe.
I wanted to thank you for getting the numbers together like this so that
Yeah.
we could see.
I can provide you the the year, for this year, I can provide you our financials for how we came to the 7646. I provided to Larry. And I thought it was really interesting that we did it pre-budget and we came in within 11 cents on the dollar amount for the salaries and within $200 for the whole material and services budget. So we hit it pretty close to nailing the price that we would charge them. So, but we definitely provide that to the council if you'd like to see it. It might be helpful to understand all the pieces that go into how we do the calculation.
Well, my question was gonna be, did you do a projected budget on how much the next year's profit may be?
We did not do that piece yet. I think that's based on probably, yeah, we can do that too. Before I send it to you, I will do that for you.
Thank you.
I have a question looking forward. If we have not budgeted for some replacement vehicles, and what would be the effect on here if revenue
Well, I think that we had money in the budget because we moved some stuff around, but we try to budget for at least vehicle maintenance and repair. We have about $5,000 or $8,000, I think, in there. I can't remember exactly, but we've tried to budget for that. And I think we had it in there and we moved some money around with it. Depends on the city's needs. And so far I've been pretty successful about getting used vehicles. I don't know how I lost an intake hold, but so we're always trying to look at that in the future. That's what the 5-year budget. I think with, we look at what Brian's needs are, what the police department needs are, and just trying to, appropriately budget the future. For
But we do
vehicles.
have in the budget a new vehicle that's been waiting for 8 months or
Correct.
so. And
Which
that
is-
goes on $70,000
50.
with all the after,
Yeah, like 50, 60,000, something like that.
okay, the vehicle plus, isn't it like $15,000?
Correct,
just
it
to
is.
equip it?
Yep.
So one of the things that I think is similar to what you were asking, and I think we asked this at the last meeting, was one of the issues we had with opening our officers going to Harrisburg was the question, does that reduce the amount of time of officers in Coburg? And that was a concern. And one data point that I think would be good to have in the future, just like you have it here for Harrisburg, how is Coburg's total hours changing this year to last year, the year before? Are we having a total decrease? Are we maintaining? Are we increasing? I don't have an idea. And I think that would be a good thing to have data to look at in the future,
Yeah.
both for sworn officers and reserve officers.
Should be able to show you on the quarter moving forward where our officers are spending their time, and you can compare it to the quarter before. So you should be able to do a quarterly comparison, and if it's helpful for you, we can add in a comparison from last quarter to this quarter. But
We
we're,
have that for the Harrisburg, but do you have it for Coburg too?
Well, on the hour breakdown that you guys got last month, that has all of the Coburg time. I can't remember if we,
yeah, I mean, we have that breakdown. So
Yeah.
we know how
Just to
much,
see our trend. Are
yeah,
we
absolutely.
at the same level? Are we increasing or decreasing, and by how much?
We'll work on that for you for the next quarterly report and try to provide you some kind of comparison to from one quarter to the other. And once we get into using these same trends, you'll be able to do full year against full year.
Because probably the most frequent comment I hear from citizens that I talk to is they're very proud of and enjoy our police force here. I mean, don't want to see it dwindling.
Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve and the chief of police to negotiate the renewal of the IGA with the city of Harrisburg to provide law enforcement services.
A second.
We have a motion by Counselor Bell and a second by Counselor Alexander to approve the city administrator and the chief of police to negotiate the renewal of the IGA with the city of Harrisburg to provide law enforcement. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Municipal Court Prosecutor Services Contract. Mandy.
So this is going to look very similar to the prior years. As most of you know, London and Paris, Jesse London has been with us now about 2.5 years. He came on when Mr. Logan unexpectedly passed away. So he signed a contract with us for, I don't remember exactly, I think it was exactly like 5 or 6 months for a $5,400 contract. So what we've had to do is we had to amend that the last year to include a full year. And now this year, what we've asked is instead of having to do this year by year, we're asking to do it for 2 fiscal years. Nothing else is changing. He's sticking with the same contracted amount as we've had all through since I've been here. It would just take us through fiscal year 24. And we can decide whether we need to proceed with going out again, or if he's still willing to continue his contract. It is hard right now. There is it's hard to get someone on. DAs, prosecutors, they're just hard to find right now. So it's like everything else, it's like a shortage. So that's what the difference is. And that's what's before you today, is just to approve that for 2 years.
Questions for Mandy?
Any?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Addendum to the 2021 City Prosecutor Services with London and Paris.
Second.
Motion by Counselor McConnell, second by Counselor Blaine, to approve addendum 2 to the 2021 City Prosecutor Services with London and Paris LLP. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And we have.
The motion
opposed?
passes, Mayor, 5-0.
5-0.
Counselor Fox stepped away.
Thank you.
Fox, do you want to? Oh, he's got his hand raised also.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. Intergovernmental annual agreements. The City of Cottage Grove Building Permit Services and LCOG Information System Services and Telecommunications System Management. Ann.
Okay, so in the past, you may have seen these in the consent agenda. These are contracts that we renew annually that we have with other organizations to help us with the services we provide our customers. And so we have looped them all into one staff report to see if it's easier for you to see what it is that we are contracting out. And so we do contract out building permit services with the City of Cottage Grove. And the information on that, our contract will be $17,648, which is a slight increase over last year, about $100, I believe. So each year we have a sit down, we talk about what's going on in our city with Cottage Grove and what do we have coming down the pike as far as what's developing. And then they have to also look at their materials and services the same way we do with Harrisburg for policing. And then charge a fair amount to all cities that are participating in this collective program. So they don't just serve us, they also serve the city of Veneta and the city of Cottage Grove. So that is the contract with Cottage Grove. The other contract is with Lane Council, 2 contracts with Lane Council of Governments. So they serve us with our IT. We actually have a assigned IT person that comes out to Coburg one day every 2 weeks and works on our computers, problem solves for us. You know, we have the service available to us every day. If we have a problem, they can sign in and help us. And so that contract is going up slightly, 400 and what is it? $50. Also have our telecommunications system, which is our telephones that are ran through LCOG. So these are all contracts that annually you would approve and for the new fiscal year, prior to the new fiscal year. So I'm happy to answer anything about any of the 3 contracts.
Just confused what the quarterly rate means.
We pay by the quarter,
So we pay $17,648
by the
4 times.
4 times, yeah. That's our building permit services. Just a reminder that we don't have a choice in this right now. This is state mandated. So whether we had building or not, it probably would affect how much we paid to Cottage Grove. But whether we have development or not, we have to have a building official by state law. And so this cost the city is going to put out. And we will have to contract with a building official until that changes. So this is a required contract for us.
I thought when we approved a contract 2 years ago, it was like a sliding fee. There was some discussion about prior to having as much building, the rate was lower.
Well, yeah, that's what I said, is we have a conversation with them every year before the fiscal year and try to give them an idea of what we are going to require of them for this year. And they'll have that same conversation with the other cities. And then they come up with percentage of time that they will spend in Coburg. And that's how we come up with our contract amount.
So they really don't want to do it on a piecemeal basis in terms of on an as needed basis or per unit basis.
No, because they have to have the staff on board and they have to pay them. The materials and services for that department do not go down. And so it's kind of one of those things that we are required to maintain this service. So we don't get to choose that.
See, our hands are tied.
Our hands are tied. This started.
Actually, we have a choice.
Yes,
We
we
could
could.
hire that building official
Yeah.
and we could hire all the staff that we would need to do that job. And I guarantee you, it's going to be a lot more expensive than what we're paying.
We can say we're not going to, and then all our permits go through the county. If the county will take us.
Question is, are you in the
Relationship.
relationship? I
Yes.
guess enjoying is not the.
Actually, we
the-
enjoy is a great word. Cottage Grove is the most professional organization, literally across the board. And their staff is amazing. And they are so helpful to us and available every time we call them. And the contractors love the inspector. He's does a great job. We get no complaints ever about the services that we are receiving from Cottage Grove.
Money well spent.
Any other
They're nice
questions?
people.
Any other questions?
I don't see any.
Was that a click slide to a scratch? Counselor Lehman? No questions. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, intergovernmental agreements with the city of Cottage Grove for building permit program services and Lane Council of Governments for information system services and telecommunication system management for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
I second.
We have a motion by Counselor Fox and a second by Counselor Lehman to approve the annual IGAs with the city of Cottage Grove for building permit program services, the Lane Council of Governments for information system services and telecommunication systems management for 2022 to 2023. I'll get it out. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Ann. Budget Committee appointment. Sammy.
Oh, some of you guys were at the Budget Committee meeting, but at the May 31st meeting, Budget Committee interviewed 2 applicants and moved to recommend to council and the mayor that you appoint Todd Waters and Laura Tryon to fill the vacancies for 3-year terms, and their applications are attached. One is a returning member who has opted to serve for another term, and Laura Tryon attended the meeting and was able to answer questions.
Any questions from council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor appoint Todd Waters and Laura Tryon to the Budget Committee for a 3-year term expiring 6/30/2025.
That,
Who was the second? Counselor Bell?
Well, that was Counselor McConnell.
Counselor McConnell, thank you. There's a motion by Counselor Blaine and a second by Counselor McConnell to recommend Mayor appoint Todd Waters and Laura Tryon to the Budget Committee for a 3-year term expiring 6/30/2025. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. For section 5 in the city charter, I hereby as mayor appoint Elise Landry to the Budget Committee to fill term through June 30, 2024. I also appoint Todd Waters to the Budget Committee to fill term. Is this term correct, Sammy? June 30, 2024?
No, that's a mistake in the script, Mayor. So it will be appointing Todd Waters and Laura Tryon to 3-year terms
Oh.
expiring 6/30/2025.
Okay, let's try this again. I, as mayor, appoint Elise
So it would be
Holy cow, I got names
Todd
all over the
Waters,
place.
Laura Tryon.
Okay, I hereby appoint Elise Tryon to the Budget Committee to fill the term through June 30th, 2025. Did I get that right, Sammy?
Actually, Ray, can I get you just to read the recommended motion off of page 152 on the budget committee instead of going off of the script?
Okay. 152.
Yes, the recommended motion. So you'll just appoint instead of take it from a point.
I hereby appoint Todd Waters and Laura Tryon to the Budget Committee for a 3-year term expiring 6/30/2025.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Administrative information reports. Any questions for Ann on her monthly update?
So, and is the Douglas Fast net the same as the fiber optics plan that we've talked about a few months ago?
Yes,
Okay, they're one and the same.
they're doing that for us. Yes,
He presented at council meeting.
yes, he did.
Other questions for Ann on the administrative monthly update? Moving forward, the financial monthly report. Any questions for Tim on the financial report? Hearing none, I'll move forward with any comments from council.
On the fiber optics, I may have missed that information. Where are we in the process of having that be, it's going to be overhead first and then underground second?
Yeah, so next month you'll see a lease agreement that we're in the process of reviewing right now and finishing up for them to place a hut at the water tank location. And then once they get that done, they will start implementing into the city. So they'll map the city first. So, and so we're hoping it's going to go very quickly, at least get started and they can start hooking up those underground. The new neighborhood, we were able to require empty conduit. So that should be an easy, but some of our older, newer neighborhoods are going to be a little bit more challenging. So, yeah. We hope that into the, late summer, fall months, we will see some. Hayden Homes did not have that requirement, and so there is not empty conduit there. So there's options, but in Hatfield, and then any of the newer old neighborhoods back here, if there's not overhead lines, they're under the ground. They're not under the ground, so we'll have to figure out how we do that. So, yes, Christian way.
So areas that currently don't have any overhead lines, we won't be putting overhead lines in for fiber optics. Is that correct? If everything's underground, we'll continue with underground, even if we have to dig it in. Okay.
And that we've talked about in the event that, and this is just Brian and my discussions of if people wanted to put street lights in Hayden Homes or something like that, and there was discussion about that could possibly create something that you could run lines on, but that is staff discussion, just shooting the breeze and trying to figure out how we would ever do that and avoid trenching. But I think that that's probably what we would end up doing, is trenching.
So the conduit that will go into all new neighborhoods from this point on would also allow for streetlights in that neighborhood as well as cables.
Yeah, I think, Brian, didn't we require 3 empty conduits into the new neighborhood? Yeah, 3 empty. So that's what we are contemplating future needs.
Any other council comments?
Well, I just have a quick comment because most of you know, I just came back from a European trip. And one of the things that I love about the European cities is there's always an open plaza. I mean, at least one. In small cities, there's one open plaza. And I think we're working towards that here. And I just want to say that's awesome in my opinion. A gathering place for markets, for people just to come together for concerts. I think that's a great way to go. One of the other things that I noticed, well, I noticed a lot of things in Europe that I don't notice here, but one of the things that they do in many European cities, because they're all experiencing decreases in congregation sizes in churches. So many of their old churches have closed. They're deconsecrated and they have turned them into community centers. They've turned them into low-income housing or apartments. And as I look around Coburg, I see a couple of empty churches, and I just wonder if in the future that's something that we could entertain. Empty
Well, there's
buildings.
certainly a lot of things that we're looking at that you mentioned. I was going to mention a couple of those things. First of all, the plaza. Our public works department is going to be very, very busy. They're doing all these street projects. We wanted to show people that the TUF was paying for projects, and we worked real hard to get this out in the first year after implementation. And I think that's going to be a reward for all of us to see that our money is going somewhere. The plaza effect in the Pavilion Park is I believe going to be amazing. If you haven't looked at the preliminary drawings that the Parks Committee has put forth, do so. It's pretty exciting stuff. I think there's a lot of, I'm getting phone calls a lot and about ideas for how our parks can be used, and they're exciting ideas. And people want to put money into it. So I think like I said before, we've got a Parks Committee that is amazing. So many different directions that they come from and bring so much expertise that I think this is going to be a huge issue, having this plaza in our downtown core. The churches and buildings, there's news to come. I think I saw it posted on Facebook that one of the churches is going to put a neighborhood church in and may have things like a lending tool library and things like that, and offer assistance to citizens around the community. Now, take it from its source, Facebook. That's what I heard it from. But I think that's an exciting idea. And so our town has a lot of things going, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us. But I think with the council that we have, you guys just hit it out of the park. All of these things that we go through today, I think there was 14 action items, and we've been through them, and the knowledge, the understanding, the concerns are all shown by you guys, and I really appreciate that. And I know our citizens do too. We're going to keep plugging away at this, and hopefully we don't get Brian stuck under the pavement because he's so busy inspecting those temperatures and stuff. But he's got a lot of work to do, and he's doing a good job. And I hear you guys laud that all the time, and it's well earned. So that's my comment for tonight. Anybody else?
Do we have any update on the Oddfellows building in terms of usage by the community or? plans
The
that we-
Oddfellows building, as you know, it's a lease from the Oddfellows, and we lease the lower floor and the parking. We've been working to try and get some updates done on the building. We did get some money for some kitchen updates. I'm finally back to a point where I can follow through on some of that. We've got some electrical upgrades that need to be done so we can get that industrial kitchen going. And I'm pretty sure I'm lined up on that, because this is one of those issues where the Oddfellows has to take care of the building. We just lease it. So I'm working with the Oddfellows to upgrade and take care of the building while we lease it. But we've also, helped them with these grants on these appliances and stuff. And they truly appreciate that. So I'm hoping within a couple of weeks, we will actually have our dish sanitizer, not a dishwasher, dish sanitizer hooked up and running. And someday we'll find a commercial sink that will work in our kitchen and get that cleaned up. And in the meantime, it is being used. It's parties, and we've been to a couple of memorials in it. So it is being used.
Is that being supervised or organized through the city?
Yes.
Yes, it's like all of our park stuff. You sign up to rent it. You go through the city policies on using parks properties. And so Sammy, as you know, probably recognize, she's all over that.
No, the only news I have is that we have been accepted to participate in a presentation, and it will be sometime in July. We won't know till September whether we get the grant. It's a long process.
Any other questions, comments? I hereby adjourn this meeting at 8:57. Good job, counselors and staff. That was a lot of work.
Good job.
Good night, everybody.